don't just she's doing. Not breathing, she's actually blue. Wait. She's put in a complaint about her ex 2 weeks ago. About who? Her ex-boyfriend, Harry Dillon.
In October 2016, Alice Ruggles was found brutally murdered in her Gateshead home after months of relentless stalking by her ex-boyfriend named Tragically Dillon. Despite Alice's growing fears and repeated warnings to authorities, the danger she faced was tragically underestimated. The investigation evidence of obsession, manipulation, and a failure to act on clear signs of escalating risk. Alice's story not only revealed the devastating consequences of stalking, but also exposed critical gaps in the systems meant to protect victims. How did a vibrant young woman become the target of such a calculated act of violence, and what lessons can be learned from her tragic death? Let's get into the haunting details of the Alice Ruggles case.
Try and calm down, try and breathe. Have a shock, just try and...
Please help me.
I know, how old's Alice?
She's only 23. I mean, knew this was coming. I got an accident, absolute psychopath.
Alice Ruggles, a vibrant 24-year-old from Turlangton in Leicestershire, seemed to have a promising life ahead of her. She was known for her cheerful nature and warm personality. Alice was deeply loved by her family, friends, and colleagues. After attending Leicester High School for Girls, she moved to Gateshead for her job at Sky. At work, Alice excelled professionally, earning the respect of her peers and supervisors. She formed lasting friendships with those around her, always ready to lend a helping hand or share a laugh.
Go, Alice!
I think Alice's life really started in that sort of year. She'd ring me up and say, "Oh, Mum, it's amazing. I've got to organise the Sky Christmas board. They're all going to arrive and they're all going to have cocktails." And it seemed almost as if everything she'd been doing before then.
Alice had big dreams and ambitions. She was driven and had a passion for success. Her work at Sky was just one part of her bright future. Outside of her career, Alice enjoyed spending time with her friends and family. She loved to travel, explore new places, and immerse herself in different cultures. Alice had a curious spirit, always eager to learn and grow. She was well loved by everyone she encountered, and her ability to make others feel special made her even more unforgettable. However, her promising future was tragically interrupted. What seemed to be a life filled with endless possibilities would soon be overshadowed by a terrifying and persistent force.
This photo I took on the day that I asked Alice to come to Sri Lanka with me. We'd never been outside of Europe, we wanted new experiences, and it was nice to be able to do that together.
Tragically Dillon, who was also known as Harry Dillon, was a soldier of Indian origin who had served in the British Army. Stationed in Edinburgh, he trained with the elite Special Reconnaissance Service, showcasing what appeared to be a disciplined and ambitious persona. When people first met him, Dillon appeared to be a charming and motivated person, showing the qualities typically linked to military professionalism: focus, determination, and strength. His background gave the impression of someone who had a clear sense of purpose and control over his life.
You love me, we're together, we're going to be together forever sort of thing. We had FaceTimed like hundreds of times at this point, but they hadn't physically met.
However, beneath this polished and seemingly respectable exterior lay a far more troubling reality. Dillon possessed a controlling and obsessive personality that emerged in his personal relationships. His charm and confidence often masked his darker traits, but as those close to him discovered, his behavior could quickly shift from charismatic to domineering. Dillon's need for control extended beyond typical boundaries. He demanded constant attention and compliance, often resorting to manipulative tactics to maintain power in his relationships. His military training, which emphasized precision and control, seemed to bleed into his personal life in a toxic manner. He exhibited a tendency to view those around him as extensions of his will, rather than as individuals with their own autonomy.
Do you know, we can't bring back Alice, and Alice is in our minds all the time. And so by trying to help people in the future in the same position as Alice, that helps us.
When Dylan began dating Alice Ruggles, his unsettling tendencies became more and more apparent. At the start of their relationship, Dylan charmed Alice with his attention and affection. He seemed like the ideal partner, and like many others, Alice was drawn to his confident demeanour. However, as time passed, his behaviour began to take a concerning turn. He became fixated on knowing Alice's every move, constantly demanding updates on her whereabouts. Dylan's calls became more frequent, and his jealousy more pronounced. At first, Alice tried to manage his increasing demands, hoping that it was just a phase. But as the weeks went by, the situation only worsened.
Said, I've met this person and I think he might be a really good person, and it's quite interesting and I'm enjoying it. I didn't realise that they never actually met each other at that point.
The turning point came when Dylan crossed a line that no partner should ever breach. He hacked into Alice's social media accounts without her knowledge or consent. He used the information he gained to send blaming messages to her male friends, claiming that they had behaved inappropriately toward her.
Tech guy, I'm from a tech background, so my first instinct, of course, right, well, he's got access to accounts and devices, we need to get that back, we need to lock him out.
This violation of Alice's privacy was not just a breach of trust, but it was an act of control. Dylan had taken away her ability to have private conversations and relationships with others. It was a moment that left Alice feeling trapped and overwhelmed by fear. In the wake of this betrayal, Alice knew she had to take action. She realized she could no longer live under the oppressive shadow of Dylan's manipulation. With great courage, she decided to end the relationship.
In the end, she closed that Facebook account and started a new one. And that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. If you factory reset devices and reset all the accounts, you gain back that control, but you can cause the perpetrator to escalate further.
After their breakup, Dylan's behaviour spiralled into a dark obsession, leaving Alice gripped by fear. His initial response was to stalk her relentlessly, bombarding her with an overwhelming flood of messages and calls. The content of these communications unveiled a disturbing pattern of manipulation and threats. In one particularly chilling instance, Dylan warned Alice that he would release intimate photos of her if she refused to engage with him, exposing his intent to control her through fear and pressure.
I don't even know if you're getting me voice messages, but please can you call me back? Thank you. Please, I don't really understand what's going on. I'm really lucky. I just want to know what's going on. Please, just one question. I'm not going to try to answer that, please.
Desperate to escape his grasp, Alice took measures to block Dylan on social media, hoping to sever all contact. But his determination to intrude into her life remained unyielding. He circumvented these barriers by employing alternative means to reach her, including sending unwanted gifts and flowers. What might have seemed like romantic overtures were invasive acts that left Alice feeling trapped and violated. As Dylan's harassment escalated, so did Alice's anxiety. The persistent fear of what he might do next left her constantly on edge, her sense of security shattered. Each unwelcome gesture served as a reminder of his refusal to respect her boundaries, turning her daily life into a constant battle to maintain her safety.
Do something just to say I'm sorry and show that I really am sorry. I just wanted to give you flowers and chocolates to prove that, no, I don't want to kill you. I'm not intending to kill you. That's all I wanted to say.
Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Alice confided in her family and close friends. She shared her concerns about Dylan's erratic and obsessive behavior, voicing her fears about what he might do next. Their support strengthened her resolve to seek help, and she decided to report the harassment to Northumbria Police. However, the response she received from the authorities was disappointingly inadequate and failed to address the gravity of her situation.
Oh, sorry, it's Alice.
What's he called?
Well, his name's Harry Dillon, but he's got like a Sikh name, which is Truman. He lives in Edinburgh.
He lives in Edinburgh.
Yeah. So he's like driven down.
In one particularly troubling instance, police call handler asked Alice whether she wanted Dillon to be arrested. This question placed an unfair burden on her, effectively making her responsible for determining the course of action against her stalker. Alice, uncertain about the legal processes and perhaps doubting whether her concerns would be taken seriously, declined to press for an arrest. This hesitation, fueled by a lack of clear guidance from the police, left her vulnerable and unprotected.
Hi there. I just need a bit of advice, really, more than anything. I split up with my boyfriend about 3 months ago. Since then, I know that he's hacked into my Facebook and also my phone.
The police categorized Dillon's behavior as harassment rather than stalking, which was a critical misstep that underestimated the severity of the threat he posed to Alice. Despite multiple reports from Alice expressing fear for her safety, the gravity of the situation was not fully recognized. In an attempt to address the escalating issue, a police officer contacted Dillon's regiment in Edinburgh. Dillon was issued an informal warning to cease all contact with Alice or face arrest. However, this intervention lacked the necessary weight, as neither military police nor Police Scotland was informed. The absence of formal action left Alice vulnerable and allowed Dillon to evade accountability.
We've had no word at all from the army at any stage, and we do feel that they could have said, well, they're sorry for what happened.
We don't want to criticise what they did, even though they could have done things differently at the time. But what we really want them to do is to look at...
Compounding this failure, the army overlooked a significant detail from Dillon's past. A domestic assault charge involving another partner in Kent had not been recorded in his military records. This glaring omission meant that Dillon's pattern of abusive and controlling behaviour went unchecked, which enabled him to continue his troubling actions without consequence. These procedural failings painted a broader picture of systemic gaps that allowed a dangerous individual to slip through the cracks. Dillon's obsessive and controlling tendencies were clear warning signs, but the lack of coordination between civilian and military authorities meant these behaviours were not effectively addressed. The failure to intervene and hold Dillon accountable set the stage for the tragedy that followed. This left Alice unprotected and showed the serious consequences of not taking stalking seriously.
Alice, please call me back. Please. I just want to speak to you. There's nothing else. I don't even know if you're getting these voice messages, but please, can you call me back? Thank you.
2 days before her murder, Alice made a heart-wrenching phone call to her mother named Sue Hill. With fear in her voice, Alice said to her mum that "I think he's going to kill me." Sue, though deeply concerned, tried to reassure her daughter, believing that such a thing could never happen. She never imagined that Alice's instinctive fear would prove tragically correct. On the night of October 12, 2016, the unthinkable happened. Truman Dillon, consumed by his obsessive fixation on Alice, drove over 120 miles from his barracks in Edinburgh to her flat in Gateshead. Despite a restraining order and several warnings, he was determined to confront her one last time. Breaking into her home through her bedroom window, Dillon found Alice alone and vulnerable. There, in a brutal act of violence, he attacked her. With no regard for her life, he slit her throat in a shocking and brutal assault.
Is she breathing?
I don't know. I'm trying to tell. Look, I'm sorry.
Okay, try and stay calm. Is she covered in blood, did you say?
Yes. Alice! Alice!
Later that evening, Alice's housemate arrived home and made the tragic discovery. Alice's lifeless body was found in the shower, a cruel and worst end to the young woman's life. The shock of her death sent ripples through her family and friends, who had already been living in fear of Dylan's stalking and threats. Despite numerous signs of escalating danger, the warnings had gone largely ignored, leaving Alice to face her tragic fate alone.
He then sent her a couple of voicemail messages. One of those said in it,
I'm not going to kill you. Why would you think I'll kill you?
I wouldn't kill you.
Although he was talking about it in the negative context, I'm not going to kill you. There's definitely a veiled threat.
In October 2016, Tremaine Dillon was arrested following the brutal murder of Alice Ruggles. The swift arrest came after authorities gathered overwhelming evidence linking Dillon to the heinous act, setting the stage for a high-profile trial. During the proceedings at Newcastle Crown Court, Dillon offered a defence that many found implausible. He claimed Alice had accidentally stabbed herself while attacking at him, framing the incident as a tragic accident rather than a premeditated act of violence.
Was found at her home address in Gateshead and she'd been murdered. Okay. Did you murder Alice?
No, I did not murder Alice.
Do you have any knowledge of this?
No, I don't have any knowledge of this.
Were you present when this murder occurred?
No, I wasn't.
Dillon's narrative aimed to shift the blame onto Alice, portraying her as the aggressor. However, the jury saw through his version of events. The evidence against him was damning, showcasing a pattern of obsessive and controlling behaviour that culminated in Alice's murder.
That I was really abusive and I used to stop her from doing things, and it was a really horrible relationship. She didn't have a life. That's a lot of rubbish. There's something that I did I shouldn't have done, but because I had her Facebook password, so I went on her Facebook.
Witnesses and forensic findings painted a harrowing picture of Dillon's relentless stalking and harassment, which had escalated to a fatal confrontation. After less than 2 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously rejected Dillon's claim of self-defense, finding him guilty of murder. Their decision reflected not only the strength of the evidence, but also the chilling nature of Dillon's actions in the months leading up to the crime. His attempts to evade responsibility were seen as desperate and unconvincing.
I'm not going to sit here and say I don't stalk her and all that. Obviously, I did look at her Facebook to see what's going on, because I've been with her for so long through all these things, so I can't just turn her off my head.
Sorry, take time.
Sorry.
In April 2017, Dillon was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 22 years. Despite the gravity of his crime, Dillon remained emotionless throughout the trial, showing no signs of remorse even as the verdict was read. His cold demeanour further solidified the notion that he had no regard for the life he had taken. The court's decision ensured that Dillon would be behind bars for a significant amount of time, though the emotional scars left on Alice's family and loved ones would last a lifetime.
Justice has been done today, but none of our family or any of Alice's closest friends will ever be the same again. We will live the rest of our lives knowing that Alice should have been here with us.
Alice's murder devastated her family and friends. They struggled to comprehend how someone so full of life could meet such a tragic end. Her parents channeled their grief into action, founding the Alice Ruggles Trust. The organisation raises awareness about stalking and works to improve protections for victims.